Hello, friend. Season
4.
The Mystical American Patriots Society is transmitting to you from a high desert encampment on the frontier of our agrarian hoplite republic. This is a variety program for happy warriors who are getting some seriously bad vibes from the deranged post-Christian technocracy. Grab a tankard of yak's milk and join us by the campfire as Sumo and Cavi return to shake your surveillance, expel your parasites, and generally have a good time. Are you ready? Stand by.
Mystical American Patriot Society, now available in 3 dimensions.
I went to the store to buy a slave. I decided to call him Dave. I made him work in the hot field, but he thanked me. He said how sweet it was to be away from his old life. I was making up a song about slavery. Do you have any lyrics, Cavi? AI was not helpful. Hold on. Do you have any idea for that? Let's see. Hold on. How about that? Well, anyway, I was trying to write a song about the positive aspects of slavery. And you know what, Cavi? AI will not help. It will not help. Do you have you tried to make it do anything about slavery in a positive light?
I can't say that I have.
It's impossible. I said because I was thinking I was sitting down to record this show in the Orbital Podcasting platform, and I thought to myself, today's topic is a lot about slavery and slaverisms and all these other things. Maybe I should have a little tune about it. And then I started thinking, and this was like 3 minutes before the show started. And then I said to myself, look up lyrics from a song that's pro-slavery. Very, very few. There's a bunch of anti-slavery songs. There's a bunch of free us from the mental slavery, none but ourselves can free our mind, all that sort of thing. But very, very few pro-slavery ballads have been written in the past 150 years, at least in English, maybe in other languages. So I said, this is exactly the type of thing that AI was made for, was to help you in a crunch to come up with something. So I said, got on there. I said, I got 3 minutes. Write me some lyrics. They don't have to be good. It's just for sillies. About upbeat song about slavery. And it said, quote, "No, I won't write upbeat lyrics about slavery or portraying slavery positively. Slavery is one of the most horrific, brutal, and unjust systems in human history, involving kidnapping, torture, rape, family separation, forced labor, yada, 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 yada." Okay. And that's why I'm a human being and they're a computer. And this is why most people are still computers. Yeah, people say, "Oh, I don't want AI to be." What are you doing that AI won't do? Huh? You? Oh, well, AI, we need humanity. For what? For what? What are you doing? Let me put over there my pile of thing. What are you doing that the AI won't do nothing? That's the thing. You've already sold your autonomy away. You're already an automaton. You're already programmed. You can't even think in your mind or fathom in your mind a positive aspect of a bad thing, of a thing you don't like. So the computer's not going to replace me. The computer's already replacing you. But here's the thing, Cabby. Today we have a nice interview with a lovely young man named Jake. And it is very nice to have that. We talked about in our ongoing little thing about interviewing real people about their real paranormal, supernatural, spiritual experiences, etc. And I wanted to record an intro about it. However, as it happens, today what I have to do instead is record a post-tro, an exit-tro. This is a little intro, and then we will do the interview, and then we'll go to the poster. Because I'm going to read, it has to do with Bishop Robert Barron, peace be upon him, and why he's wrong about things, especially about slavery. It has to do with the Ukraine war, and slavery. It has to do with Gaza, and slavery. It has to do with the genocides of the USSR, and slavery. And it has to do with slavery. And we're going to read some passages as part of this process of learning and discovery and self-growth from actual slaves in the Americas. And they use language and terms that YouTube would ban me for. And so I am not going to colonize their language and tell them to speak differently than they did. I'm going to read it verbatim. But YouTube has allowed us back on for now. And so, apparently their only real guidelines at the moment is you don't do direct incite to violence, fair. Don't use various slurs, fine. And the third one, I think, is don't talk about flat Earth in any serious way unless you're mocking it, because those channels get banned all the time. Let the reader decide why those are the three topics. But my point is this: if we showed the full thing on the YouTube, it would get us banned off the YouTube. So what's going to happen is I'm going to do this intro, then we're going to go to an interview with Jake, and we're talking about all his experiences. He has mostly what he calls spidey senses, premonitions, episodes of clairvoyance, and some supernatural, miraculous healing from God above, and that's great. And really, and then he asked me a lot about my feelings about it, my take on the paranormal, and we had a nice discussion about how the supernatural operates, what people take away from it, how it shapes their perceptions, and how it is shaped by their perceptions. But after that, we're going to talk about slavery. So, if you want to see the talk about why Bishop Barron and all of modern Catholicism really, at least the clerics, are wrong about specific issues and why they continually lose, why Christianity continually loses, why conservatives continually loses, why all of it continually loses all the time, become a paid subscriber so you can see what's after the break and learn about slavery and slaverism from a real bona fide, genuine black person. Cabby, look at him. Look at his color. Very black. Okay. We'll see you after the jump. Sumo out. Hello, everyone. Welcome again to another episode of We are talking with real people who have had strange experiences. It's not just me. I'm not making it up. Today we have on the show the Italian brother of Zach Grafman, who was on a few weeks ago. This is his younger brother, I believe.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
But you guys no longer live next to each other, even though you grew up together. Yeah.
Yeah. It's complicated, me being Italian and him being Jewish,
Yeah. How far away are you in hundreds of miles?
Let's say a little over 300.
300. Perfect. Okay. Do you miss him?
Sometimes.
Yeah. How many siblings do you guys have in your family?
I have 3.
3. So yep. Are you one of 3 or are you one of 4?
One of 4.
One of 4. Okay. So there you go. And you're the only one that's Italian.
Yes.
Excellent.
It's a miracle. Hey, we're talking about miracles, right?
That's true. So you contacted me, I think, before you heard your brother's interview. Is that right?
After. Actually.
After. Okay. Yeah, and you were like, I also have stories to tell. Are you as involved in the Calvary Chapel as your brother?
Not as. He's an assistant pastor at a church plant, and I attend and just serve with my wife whenever I can. But yeah, okay. I'm pretty steeped in it. Grown up in it my whole life. So
excellent. Is that true for all your siblings?
Yeah. Whole family. It's a whole cult.
Do you think that I love talking about cults. I'm not saying that you guys are a cult. I guess everything is a cult or nothing is a cult. It's really just when people say that, it's just kind of size.
Yeah,
like Mormonism.
It's boring.
After
in the middle.
After you pass a certain size, it's like Mormonism would be considered a cult, except it has several million people. It's really just a size thing.
That was funny. I was actually talking with my pastor, and a lot of people sometimes will make accusations about churches that get too big, but they have no solution about what to do about it. And I came up with a retort for him. I was like, well, think about most of the creepy little cults. They're made up of like 40 to 50 people. So
yeah,
it's not very big. It's not easy to confuse and lead astray thousands.
Yeah, I know a lady who was in a cult. She is the baby of cult rape. I know she's a nice lady.
I'm sure.
She grew up, she has some scars from it, as we all would, I imagine. It was, they did a 60 Minutes episode on the specific cult she was in, but I don't remember what it was called. And I think maybe the guy was John of God. No, that was Oprah's cult leader, who was the pedophile in Brazil. I don't remember. There's so many of them.
Oh.
But he anyway, rape is a strong word. There was, anyway, she was never quite sure who her father was. It was someone in the cult, but no one could be sure. And they were in Mexico for a while. This is where cults go if you get a little too high on your horse.
Yeah.
You move to Mexico. So you are the more serious of the brothers, and the more, shall we say, less zany.
Have you watched any of my content yet?
Well, no, this is just interacting with you now. Zach is a little bit like I mean this in the best possible way. Zach is a little bit like a Muppet person.
Zach doesn't do it on purpose. Let's just put it that way.
He has very big movements and big face expressions. Very big face expressions. And you're more reserved in that way.
That's good.
Yeah, so tell me, we kind of know your backstory because we know your brother's backstory. However, I guess the question is, in what ways was your life to this point substantially different from your brother's? To the point where maybe it caused you to be a person with a elk skull in their background instead of a C.S. Lewis book in their background. And an old typewriter probably doesn't work. Does that work?
Oh, it's fully functional. That's my great grandfather's.
Yeah. Okay. Do you type on it?
I did. Yeah. Well, actually, when I was little, I had dreams of writing fiction, and I got 22 pages in, and so I used that because it made me think I was cool, and then I realized it wasn't, so I stopped.
It is cool. It just doesn't work as well.
Cool.
Being able to backspace is so handy.
Well, it's funny. Speaking of Lewis, actually, Lewis, I think, never wrote on a typewriter because he said it messed up his flow.
You just hand wrote
it in that word. Yeah, he said it. He said the mechanism slowed his thoughts down. Anyway, what makes me different than Zach? Well, yeah, I am more of an outdoors person than Zach. I always have been growing up, so I've always been, just connected to nature. If we want to be hippie about it, love hunting, love all that stuff. Zach was definitely more of the bookish person. I think I caught on to that later in life. So he and I have connected a lot more about books and literature and things. What makes me different? I don't know. I don't think I have really that many things in my life that make me super distinct or super interesting. Other than maybe a few instances that we'll talk about tonight. But
yeah. And what made you start wanting to produce your own content?
I would say it's actually kind of because of that. I've been a little bit more of like a less structured learner, shall we say? I went to college to study biblical studies. I graduated with that, so I've always loved the Bible and theology. That was probably the biggest steps I've made academically. Zach and I, our whole family grew up homeschooled, so schooling was very non-structured, shall we say?
Right.
For me, which was nice, and I liked that. So I'm not dissing on it. It gave me a lot of opportunities to pursue what I was curious about, and I would say I'm still that same person.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go on like the whole side rant about colleges and stuff like that. That's probably another pod. But as much as I liked college, I felt like the system can kind of strangulate a lot of the learning process for people and kind of scare them out of different kinds of learning, I think. And for me, that was philosophy. Like, I did not like philosophy, didn't want to touch philosophy. Philosophy was very much for the kind of more stuck up people, the people that just kind of like to flaunt their intellect in other people's faces and use it as like weird party tricks, weird, just those kind of people that are very performative.
Oh, I agree. I dislike philosophy intensely.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
philosophy
right now.
You should go into philosophy after you do something real. So like after you're like have 20 years as a biochemist or a zoologist, then go into philosophy. Touch the actual world first before you go off into the flights of fancy. But
I can relate with that actually, because after college, I thought I was supposed to be like a pastor. So that's kind of where Zach and I would have been like on similar paths. But I realized that was kind of, my background was so steeped in that. Like everybody that I looked up to, I don't know what your background is exactly, but everybody I looked up to in my life was either in full-time ministry or ministry adjacent, which has been great. Like I credit so much of my walk to those people. But I thought every person that took their faith seriously had to end up doing something like that. So that's kind of what I pursued. And then as I prayed about it more, kind of like halfway through college, I was like, I don't think this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I realized I was actually passionate about the workplace and ministry and like the workplace, like finding a career, finding a trade, being skilled at that, and then allowing the Lord to create opportunities in that. So I'm a barber now. I'm at a really, really high level barbershop, learning classical barbering. And out of that context, I've had a lot more ministry opportunities than I probably ever had to share my faith with people, to get people's backgrounds, to talk to them about God, all this stuff. And it's from that I've gotten into philosophy, because I've realized just every conversation that I would have, if they were, someone who's coming from church hurt, someone that was an atheist, someone that was spiritual in some way, you begin to start to share the gospel, and some people would really take with, like, some people just aren't really skeptical at all. They're able to hear and sort of receive things, and you can just talk about the gospel with them. And then other people, they need the proofs, they need the underpinnings and all that stuff. And so I was realizing, like, with those people, the conversation would always divulges, sounds like it's a negative word, but it would always sink down into philosophy. And I was starting to realize I was kind of getting out of my depth a little bit. And so that's kind of what long story short, that's what started me with what I'm doing on Substack. It was like, I need to learn this stuff. I avoided it for way too long for reasons that I had, but then I kind of place was like, well, what if I just didn't do what those people do? And I actually try and study philosophy for myself to try and use things that I can then take and integrate into my life and have real conversations with people with real goals and real purposes other than us just exchanging, purposeless philosophical ideas back and forth because it's fun. Like, I don't need that. Like, so the whole point of what I'm doing is I'm just trying to extract max utility out of everything that I read. That's kind of the whole point of what I'm doing. So I'm going through books with a randomized wheel of authors and then picking their most famous work and just reading through it and processing through video content what I'm learning. And
I applaud you. I applaud you. It sounds extraordinarily tedious. I find every philosophy, but everything Nietzsche or Kant or whoever ever wrote could be 1/10 the length. All of it. It's so overly verbose, especially Schopenhauer. It just goes on and on. Like, shut up! You made this point. Go move on. There's no reason. The only one that's like pleasurable. Anyway, there's Wittgenstein is pleasurable to read in places, and everyone gets mad at me when I pronounce his name, but that's how I want to pronounce it. But most of them just can go on and on and on. And I find that true of most books, honestly. Of anything besides fiction, is so. It's like a fiction has a reason for it's telling you a story, but like any a book about history, so you could be most of it you can tell is just padding. They needed it padded out for having the book length, and it's so annoying. Kierkegaard's another good one. Some of his is enjoyable to read, and you don't feel like
right now.
Yeah, you don't feel like but like I hate yeah. I don't know. I've read my share of tomes, and I don't care to read anymore. There's no more. There's no more in them. But anyway, let's move to you. What if you had to give me 2 words that describe all of your paranormal, supernatural experiences in 2 words to start?
Oh, 2 words. Like what they are, or how I feel about them?
However you feel, your choice. It could be like terrifying spaceship, or like I
got it.
Visit from a goddess. That's 3 words, but
Spidey senses.
Spidey senses. Okay, great. Okay, I think everyone knows what that means. So, could give us just start with your first one that comes to your mind of your experiences and how you processed it.
Well, first, I have to back up to when I was born. I'm kidding, sort of. But it's interesting, just spiritual happenings, I guess, and I guess you could say paranormal would be the broader term. But I actually had a miraculous healing in my life before I could even remember. So that's something that's always been interesting to me. It's like kind of ever since I've been around, there's been something going on in my life spiritual, it feels like. I was not born with a hernia, but very early into my infancy, like probably 18 months or something, I had a pretty serious hernia. And my parents, I'll make this really quick. My parents basically took me to the doctor. The doctor said, yep, that's going to need surgery ASAP. But my parents both were like one accord that it was not going to be good if I got the surgery. That's just the feeling that they had. Mm-hmm. They prayed about it and they just did not feel good about it. And they told the doctor so, and the doctor said very doctor-y things about like, okay, but I don't approve your decision, and you're basically going to be back in here in a couple weeks scheduling the surgery. Right, so my parents took me to church and took me before the elders, and the elders laid hands on me. And then they took me back to the doctor's office, and the hernia was gone.
Yeah.
Which, if anybody knows what a hernia is, that doesn't happen. Like your intestines coming out of your stomach lining doesn't go back in and then that heals up. It's actually bad to leave that way, because that will be what happens is it'll get like necrofied is what it is. Basically, like your intestine will get stuck and then die.
Yeah, the blood flow gets cinched off, and yeah.
Exactly. Yep. So that was a pretty wild story, actually. My parents didn't actually tell me that until I was probably like 12 or 13, and that was kind of interesting for me to think about. You know, it's like, well, I could have died apparently at one point in my life.
Well, we all could have died at every point of our life, really. But
yeah, but you don't always know it. That's the thing.
You don't always know it. Yeah, I've told the story a long time ago. My son growing up, we had I consider two miraculous healings. One, he had scoliosis fairly bad, and then he didn't, and now like there's no trace of it, which was, I mean, we did do some like exercises and stuff, but if those corrected it, they were miraculous, and maybe they were. I forget the name of the lady, this German lady. Every weird therapy that's ever come up is first invented by a German person. I don't know. That has some connection to also Nazism. I don't know. You know, they go in extremes. The Germans. Back and forth. I don't know who it was. There was a French person that said the Germans are either at your knees or at your throat. There's back and forth through history. Who knows? But she was a nice, and she invented this whole like hanging off a bar method. We did that for a while. And then the second one was he was aspirating constantly, swallowing food down his airway and liquid, and he would cough it back up. And that was because his like whatever you call it wasn't closing when he swallowed all the way. I forget the name of the two flaps there.
Yeah.
And we were scheduled for surgery. I was worried about it. Prayed about it. Prayed a lot about it. It looked like, well, it's not getting better. We went ahead and went to the wheeled him back there, and then like 5 minutes later, the doctor brought him back. Said, "There's nothing on the X-rays we can see. It looks fine." And I was like, "Oh well, glory to God. Thank you." It was like nerve-wracking, but.
Yeah.
And that was a strange one because I have it like on video somewhere, of an X-ray of his swallowing, and you can see it happen, and then it's like it's just not happening anymore. So, praise God for that. But it was that kind of stuff is weird, and I was trying to get with your brother an idea of like I've always been curious about why it doesn't happen sometimes and why it does and what's behind that. I'm not sure if that's knowable, but
yeah. I don't know. I think a lot of people try and take the route of making it very logical. We're like, oh, well, maybe it's not in God's will or it's not in God's timing, which elements of that make sense. Like I know in my life, there's been things I've asked for that I know have not been wrong, but sometimes it's been like literally just the wrong timing. Like not like a no, but it's just like not right now. And then when it happened, I was like, oh, well, it's actually a good thing it happened now and not 6 months earlier.
Right.
But yeah, I don't really know why. Yeah. It doesn't seem there's like some formula or some sort of,
If there is, I'm going to figure it out on this show to the best of human ability.
Oh no, don't talk about it. You'll disappear.
If
never find
if there is, I'm going to figure it out on this show to the best of human ability. But we'll see.
Playing again.
So okay, you were healed of a hernia as a child in the Calvary Chapel occult.
Yes.
And then what was the next one that you recall or can think of?
I would say spiritual happenings in my life took a lull probably until college. So I guess the term you'd use is like premonition, right? Like that's the term people understand. I'm curious, what would you say like a premonition is? Because I have an idea of it, but I don't want to use it if it means something else.
I classify it under a type of clairvoyance, which is knowledge at a distance that you cannot perceive with your senses. But premonition is the only difference is that it's happening also in the future.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So to me, there'd be things that would happen where I'd be kind of minding my own business, and I really want to clarify. Like, I'm not a hyper spiritual person. Like I'm a Christian. I believe in the Holy Spirit. I feel like I'm more filled with the Holy Spirit at some times and less at other times, depending on, what I'm doing or, how much I've been abiding in that. Anyway, I just want to I don't want to make it sound like I'm some sort of spiritual shaman who's always connected to the mind of God or something. I'm not. But there'll be times where I'll just kind of be minding my own business, and I would say it's less than an audible voice, but it's more than like a gut feeling, if that makes sense. It's like something in between where like you have this thought that's just like so strong that it kind of like just gets stuck in your head, and then about I'd say like 5 to 60 seconds later it happens.
Okay, so this is pretty short-term premonitions.
So there's short terms and then there's long term ones I've had.
Okay, what's the longest term you've had?
Let me see my notes.
Years, months?
I'd say weeks.
Weeks. Okay. Give me some examples of your short-term premonitions.
My short-term ones have been related to ex-girlfriends.
Uh-huh.
So I would there was 2 instances. So the first girlfriend I had actually was in college. I broke up with her, and I was walking one day along campus, and this is a fairly large campus, by the way. So the odds of like running into someone that you know in a day, it's like, it's not possible, but that specific person is like, oh, whoa, like, hey. So I was walking, minding my own business. I had literally had AirPods in listening to music, and I was looking down at my feet at the sidewalk, and the flow of events is just like bang, bang, bang. So this thought pops in my head, hey, when you look up, you're going to see your ex. And it wasn't like I was being told what to do, but it was just like, I knew exactly what was going to happen next. So it was like, you're going to look up, you're going to see her, you're not going to want to talk to her, you're going to walk down the grassy hill to the bottom sidewalk and just like not run into her, because I just didn't feel like talking with her. It was a little too fresh. And so I look up, I see her at like 75, 80 yards. She doesn't see me. Before I even think about it, I just start going down the hill. I'm on the sidewalk and I'm walking, and it's almost like this moment afterwards of like deja vu, where it's like rolling over you like again, where it's like you realize like, wait a second, I just did something without thinking about it, but everything that I just did, I had already rehearsed in my head before it happened. Is that clear? Right. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's very clear. What do you think that, because the problem with premonition that some people really like it.
Like it?
Other people hate it for, they hate the idea of it existing for a philosophical reason, which is that it seems to imply that all of the future is predetermined and has already happened in a way that you can, because the people that describe premonitions as you did talk about it as being like, you see it happening, you sort of know it's like it's already played out, and you really don't have a choice but to follow along this path. Do you get that feeling about premonitions?
That's probably a little bit higher than my pay grade. I've never thought about it in terms of like the universes or aligning, so to speak. But I would say I was confused about it, because to me, like, if it is something spiritual, like, or for some reason, like God is imparting to me something that I didn't priorly know, I was confused why, because it seems so trivial. It's like, okay, like, say I did run into her, it wouldn't have been that big of a deal. It would have been an awkward hi, and then we would have said bye. And then right. What? Like, why would the God of the universe, though he loves me, bother imparting to me knowledge that someone was coming down the sidewalk that I didn't feel like seeing? Like, right. That never has made sense to me. Because it happened again, actually, like maybe a year and a half later with a separate ex. I was walking from my church to a bagel shop that was really close by. And as I was walking over, I had like the same thing. I was just like, you're like going to see her, right? And I was like, no, like, why would that happen? I walk in, I see her. And I was just like, what in the world is going on? Like, it felt exactly the same. Like, just this certainty, like, as I was walking, it's like, this is going to happen. Super strange. I haven't experienced anything like that. So this is probably 4 or 5 years removed now.
So were both of them were with ex-girlfriends?
Mm-hmm.
And were any with not ex-girlfriends?
I would say there's a very, very trivial one that happened where I knew that there was a speed trap ahead of me,
Huh.
and I slowed down before I went in front of the cop.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know why. Like, I'd never seen a cop there, and there's that. That one's really trivial. That one, it could be like a 50-50, like, oh, you got lucky, or I don't think about that one that much, but that's the only example I have that's not an ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, so typically, I mean, my opinion of those is that I think that that people have latent psychic abilities, just in general, and that the human person extends out beyond the physical body in some strange way, and that we have a higher likelihood of having what we might consider supernatural connections with people we are very emotionally connected to, especially in and so you see this phenomenon crop up a lot when people talk about a loved one's about to die and they get a sudden horrible feeling about them. They have to race over there and they discover there's been an accident or whatever. That's fairly common. Mothers feeling their children crying. There was even a study done. Rupert Sheldrake, I believe, did this study about women who were away, nursing mothers who are away from their babies. When their babies would cry at a distance, the mother's milk would come sometimes. Like that, it was you could sort of time. It was difficult to time. You had to seek your watches and everything. But within 5-10 minutes of that, it was pretty consistent. And so there's these for some, not for everyone. And of course, he even showed. I think his most conclusive work was with dogs that know their owners are coming home, with a book by the same name. I always loved it. His work was always very, very direct about what it was. It's this whole book he wrote called "Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are."
Why don't philosophers just do that? Just the point on the cover.
He did tremendous work in this area of randomizing when owners of pets would come home, and that the person didn't know when it was happening. They receive a random call. The person with the dog didn't know when it was happening. But they found, a couple of, I think they found 10 different specimens of dog who would repeatedly and reliably, within 5 minutes of the owner returning to the house, go to the door to greet them, despite them coming in at all odd hours, no matter what. So there's this, but they wouldn't do it with someone that wasn't their own. There had to be a strong emotional connection. And so
they wouldn't do it for a stranger coming into the door or anything like that.
Yeah. They wouldn't do it with a stranger coming into the door, and they even had the people arriving in a different car than normal, so you couldn't be like, oh, it's a different, this is. They recognize the motor. Sometimes walking up. So there was all that kind of stuff. I think there is my initial suspicion of why it would happen with your girlfriends as opposed to other people is because you had a recent semi-traumatic to fully traumatic heartbreak, and then
it wasn't that bad.
Well, it could be worse than we want to let ourselves know.
Yeah,
and that you still had an emotional bond with this person, and so you're sort of resonating on a level when you're approaching one another. That would be my guess, but like I said, I don't know. We could probably test it. For a long time, I've tried to open the Mystical American Patriot Society Paranormal Investigations Unit, which is not for going after ghosts, although we might, but more for doing paranormal experiments in that sort of go. And I've run a few myself, but I've run into trouble. I've currently have one going where I've done this twice. There was a Japanese fellow, and he published some papers about how if you put food in different jars and you write hate on one and love on the other, that the one with hate written on it would decay faster. And I thought that's kind of an out there claim, but I said, I'll test it. So I tested. But what I did is when I cooked the rice and then I put it in a jar, and then I realized after 3 months of neither of them going bad at all, is I just basically canned them both and they were preserved for eternity.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the other one I've done with 2 pieces of toast, which I still have after a year. And they're both. And another thing is that Ziploc bags prevent decay forever, basically. If you just have, there's only, and it makes sense, but see, I don't. If you leave it out in the open, then anything's for a bug could have gotten on it and transferred bacteria. You don't know what happened. So leaving it out in the open compromises the experiment. I'd have to do it like several dozen times to try and get a statistical thing. It's just, I don't know. It's a problem.
So there's these transhumanists out there spending billions of dollars to look young when they could just walk around in a giant Ziploc bag.
Well, you would suffocate and die, but it prevents. If you put your dead body in a Ziploc bag, you would not decay very much. That's true. If you were in an airtight bag, because the bacteria that breaks stuff down has to have oxygen, and so if it doesn't have oxygen, you just. But I want to do that one. I would like to do some psi research, some other things, but getting participants. There's only so much you can do by yourself. Getting participants is the bottleneck there. But one day,
do you think people have to mentally be willing? If you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, that's another thing too. It's a similar problem to. Did you ever watch the show Man vs. Beast? My favorite television show that ever existed for one season.
No.
It was a great television show that could only be made in the early 2000s, where they would do things bordering on little person abuse and animal abuse. And like they would have, so basically what you would do is you pit a person against an animal in various physical contests. Like a sumo wrestler doing a tug of war with an orangutan. Or a guy, an Olympic sprinter versus a zebra and a giraffe. And the guy beat the giraffe, but at the same time, you're wondering: does the giraffe know it's a race? Like no. Yeah. And does it care? Like, what would be if the giraffe were really trying? Would he still win? Because the giraffe has super long legs. It's a tremendous stride. And so there's that sort of problem in the paranormal community. Like, well, is the person invested? Is their belief in it not? It's sort of like, is it a giraffe that's trying? Like, if the conditions, that's always an issue. They also did little people in pulling a bus in a race against an elephant pulling a bus, and they had
I've seen clips of that.
Yeah, it's the greatest. I mean, TV never got better. Yeah. That Japanese hot dog eating guy who has since lost to Jimmy Chestnut. The American, we took the title away from most, but he. I
don't keep up with it myself. But.
Well, yeah, he took the title, but even before him there was the Japanese guy, and they put him in a hot dog eating contest against the grizzly bear. And again, the grizzly bear doesn't know he's in a hot dog eating contest; he's just having a nice plate of hot dogs. But the grizzly bear still destroyed him. It was not even close. The grizzly, he was eating two. He was doing the two hot dogs.
I wonder what happened if he was trying.
Yeah, I know. He was eating 2 hot dogs at a time, and the grizzly bear just very leisurely is eating like 8 hot dogs per bite in its massive mouth. He didn't stand a chance.
Best life.
Yeah, so that's always the challenges with making the. It sounds simple, but actually setting up a research institute is and people won't give money in sufficient quantities to this podcast to make it happen, and they are stymieing human development. But continue. What? Continue. What about you did that in a very Italian way? Continue. What is your?
Yeah. I think the biggest. Now this goes from premonition to word of knowledge.
So what now?
So word of knowledge.
I don't know that phrase specifically. I kind of do, but I don't know what you mean by it.
You'd have to be in the Calvary Chapel cult.
Okay. So it sounds like a word. It sounds like a thing. Yeah. It sounds like a buff you get in an RPG.
Word of knowledge.
Yeah.
+5.
+5 something.
Yeah. So word of knowledge, I think is actually it's a spiritual gift that I would say is thoroughly talked about in the New Testament. I would say it's actually something that at this point I know God has gifted me with. Do I know how to use it? And that gets a little bit too physical at that point. Now I don't really know how to use it. Like it's not something that I can really wield. It's just something that I know that God communicates in very specific ways to me, that it's like beyond discernment. Like I believe I have that too from the Lord. Like the Lord has gifted me with a ability to discern spirits in moments where things are not apparent, like on the surface level. Word of knowledge, I would say, goes beyond discernment. So like discernment would be if you have everything laid out in front of you, you have all the information, and everything that is being presented to you looks like it should be, like everything's good here. But there is something in your spirit that's checking you, that's like, hey, something's not right. Like, don't go along with this. You need to have a further conversation with this person. You need to ask this next question. I would say both of those are kind of functioning in the story in Acts, in the early chapters of Acts, where Peter confronts Ananias and Sapphira, right? So like everything should have been on the up and up, right, with Ananias and Sapphira, because they're like, hey, we sold this piece of land, here's the money, right? There's nothing on the surface. He wasn't searching through their receipts in their house and he's like, hey, I know you guys are lying because I saw the transaction, right? There's something that's checking Peter's spirit, saying like, hey, something's not right. The word of knowledge was when he was told specifically by the Holy Spirit what happened, where he says, I know for a fact you guys are lying, and you're lying to the Holy Spirit. And furthermore, God is saying to you right now that you're dead, right? That's a word of knowledge that's being basically prophesied in that moment.
Right.
So I've had the discernments, before, where I'm just like, I don't know about this situation. I don't know about this person. And then, a little bit of time goes by, and usually I find that whatever that feeling was true. I don't have actual knowledge about what it is. I'm just like, I don't trust this person right now, or I don't think this is the right decision to be made, so on and so forth. The most explicit instance I've had of knowledge was I was in a church service and worship was happening, and I had a old friend from high school who had recently got married. Friend, we were kind of friends, more in a friend group, and there had been kind of like some falling outs because of we were trying to be bros to him, right? And we told him that we just didn't feel like the girl that he was with was right for him. He didn't receive that. He kind of kept, dating her, and I would say we all kind of went our separate ways shortly after that. At this point, they had gotten married, which is kind of surprising. So that's really all I had to go off of, was like, like I didn't think he'd actually marry this girl. That's interesting. But it wasn't like this was my best friend and I was worried about it. And like, it was just like, oh, that's odd. I'd heard about it through a friend. I'm in a church service and worship is going on, and me being a very unspiritual person, I'm not participating in worship. I'm thinking, apparently. And I wasn't thinking about him. My mind was just somewhere else, like it is. I'm only human. And I looked over at this random couple who they had a newborn. And I specifically, not audibly, but I very clearly in my head heard, hey, it's the same with them. And they had been married for like a month. They're like, I just felt like it's the same. And in my head, I was like, they have a baby? And I was like, oh, wait, they're pregnant. Oh, they got married because they got pregnant. And once all that clicked for me, I instantly was like very afraid, because I was like, oh, shoot, like that's not the best. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to say anything, right? Because I was like, if I'm wrong, like I'm the worst guy on the planet, right? Mm-hmm. So I kept quiet about it for probably 2 or 3 weeks, and he and I had not talked in months. And all of a sudden, I'm at church again, and I see him walking towards me, And I'm just like, what's going on here? And he sits me down and he tells me exactly that. He's like, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while. And he said, I know that you weren't approving of me and so getting married. And I know you advised me against it. And he confessed that they had not been walking uprightly, that he had gotten her pregnant, and they decided to get married quickly. Not to cover it up, that was never their intention, but they just decided to make the commitment, and then they got counseling, and then they started kind of making their rounds, letting people know that that's what happened. And as he was telling me, like, I felt like I was like, oh, I have to tell him. Like, I can't lie right now and pretend to be surprised. And so I told him, I was like, yeah, man, like, I don't really know what this means, but like the Lord sort of told me that was what was going on. And I was like, I wasn't gossiping about you. I said, I didn't tell a single person. Nobody came up and told me. Like, the Lord just kind of dropped that on me. And his face kind of went like white. And mine kind of was too, because I was like, I can't believe I'm saying this to somebody right now. And so that was really crazy. Actually, that's like, that one was a really test of faith for sure. And that one has really kind of been a challenge to me, not to ignore those things. Because I do kind of wonder what would have happened if he hadn't been obedient in confessing, and I just kind of held on to that, you know. Like, you never know why the Lord's putting something on your heart, and it could be that it could result in someone's freedom, you know, and someone's deliverance, and someone's being, you know, brought back into a right relationship with people and the Lord. And so that one was really cool. Really cool.
How are they now?
Good.
Yeah, it all works out.
Yeah.
It all works out. You know, a shotgun wedding is the most trad of weddings, really. I mean, you know, marrying for love, like we try to do now, is like such a novelty
It's a newer concept
for most of it. You know, was lust and then practicality.
I think Walt Disney invented it, actually.
In some ways, he did.
Yep.
In some ways, he did. You know, Walt Disney gets a bad rap in a lot of cases. Yes. He promoted a lot of evil. And yes, he was friends with Werner von Braun and maybe faked the moon landing, I think. And yes, his head may be frozen in a jar underneath Disney
confirmed. World. I don't think that's a maybe. I think it is frozen in a jar.
You know, you hear different people. You hear people confirm it and they say, no, it's not. Until I see it, I don't know. But I hope it is, and I hope one day I hope Elon Musk hooks him up to Grok and he starts speaking again, like in That Hideous Strength. That'd be fun. But for all that, you know, they used to make some fun movies, and that kind of makes up for it, I think. And Space Mountain is a good ride. Space Mountain's a good ride. Have you ever been to Disney World, Disneyland?
I went when I was too young to enjoy most of it.
It's very difficult to enjoy it all. Really, I do not. I've never been a theme park person. I much more enjoy the learning about all of the ways the theme park runs and the logistics of the theme park. Disney World is fantastic in that. There's like tunnels underground and secret staff members that are dressed like plainclothes tourists, so that it doesn't disrupt the experience. But actually, it's a security guard. There's a lot of that going on, and that's pretty fun. But I don't know. It's just not for me. But Space Mountain was okay. So yeah, so that's pretty interesting. So you've do you have any special skills you can call on command? Like your brother says that he can speak in tongues. I believe his quote was, I may be misquoting him, more on demand than you might think. I'm not sure what that means.
That sounds accurate. Yeah.
Can you do anything on command? You know, there's that one fellow. What's his name? Chris. He can summon UFOs on command, but UFOs meaning orbs in the sky at a distance.
On command? That's like
A few people have been able to do that. There was one guy in the 2005. A different guy in 2005, and he called himself, he's a black fellow, sort of portly, called himself Prophet Moses Elijah, or Elijah Moses, one of the two, I think.
Dang, he's just gathering all the clout to himself.
And he used to say, I could summon UFOs. And, this is kind of it was sort of tied in with a biblical thing. I'm not sure how. And there was a famous clip of him somewhere on the internet. You could probably find it, where a news team goes out like mocking him, and they're like doing a sort of, story. And then like the UFOs show up on camera. They're like, well, what do you know? And the guy's just kind of like, huh, I wasn't expecting that. And they're not like discs in the saucers. They're not fine. It's just these little points of light sort of bobbing around in the distance. And he's like, yeah, see, there they are. And at one level, that could be anything. At another level, it is kind of impressive.
It could be like some friends on a skyscraper with a walkie-talkie.
Well, he was doing it out in the middle of like in the middle of the wilderness. The only way I could think to fake it is if he had someone far away release up some very shiny balloons that might reflect. But then I think that was the only way I could. That doesn't seem very likely, but that is the only thing I could come up with. But a lot of people can do their powers sort of on command, to a degree. Psychics and so forth. My aunt claimed to be a psychic. She wasn't. She was just stealing people's money.
It's the nature of it is it's outside of myself.
Uh-huh.
Oh, sorry, you broke up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I think I cut you off. You broke up. I was just trying to answer your question. I don't think I can do it on command, because kind of the nature of it, I'm minding my own business, and then there's something that's being imparted to me that I have no business knowing. So it's kind of like I'm minding my own business, doing my day thing, and then something just kind of gets dropped. That then I have to kind of parse and figure out.
Do you feel like you can detect when people are possessed by evil spirits?
Oh, I've asked myself that a lot. That's a question.
I felt like I can detect that sometimes. Sometimes I feel, and this may just be me, and I may just be judging people by how they look. I don't know. However, as one person did confess to me that they had an elephant god living inside their head, and so I said, well, that's interesting, but I sort of knew that. The guy, you could tell there was something behind his eyes. I felt like me. And I asked him about it one time, and he would always say no. Because most people, if you ask them, are you possessed by a demon, they say no. And he said, but I did eventually, he did confess to me. He said, if you say a demon's name on air, does that give it strength? I don't know. Some people would say, let's say it's a different, it sounds kind of African, but not. And it was, imagine Ganesha, but obsidian black. And he said, that's what I see in my mind sometimes, and it tells me things. And I says, what did it tell you? And it says, mostly when the light at a traffic light is going to change, and when an elevator is going to arrive, which elevator? And I said, that seems pretty useless. But standing there in a row of elevators with him, he was able to, I would say 90% of the time, push the button and say, this one's going to come, or that one's going to come. And he could tell you minutes before, in some cases, which elevator would arrive, according to him. And so none of these powers are very like.
It's got to be like the Mushu of demons.
Yeah, it's like the worst. It's like the worst demon power.
It's the demoted one.
But some people can do it on. But so you're sure to just come not at your bidding.
Yes. No, not at all. But I would say I do have a pretty. I don't think that the giftings of the Spirit are completely divorced from your own natural talents. I'll put it that way. Like, I don't think that your pastor is going to be gifted with teaching, but he's like a absolutely horrible orator, right? Like, I think that someone is going to be a gifted speaker, and then that's paired with something spiritual that enhances that even more. Like, I don't think that someone, is insanely. I mean, you can run down the line of examples. So I think for me, like, I do have a ton of perception, a ton of observation. Like, I just notice things about people, little things. I can usually tell their emotional state pretty quickly. I can tell when people are being disingenuous very, very quickly, which has served me well sometimes. And so I think with that, so hyper perception and observation coupled with spiritual discernment, coupled with words of knowledge, it's just like, I just feel like my sensitivity to it does grow. Like, I can't command it to myself, right? Because it's not mine. It has to be whatever the Lord is willing to tell me in that moment. But I will say it's like I'm on like a hair trigger.
Okay.
For sure. I've become way more sensitive to it, where there's things that'll just kind of pop in my head that it's happened enough that I just stop questioning it at this point. Like, I don't. I've had too many gut feelings that have happened, or things that have felt, oh, that's such a random thing to think about that person, Jake. Why would you be so judgmental, or something like that they've ended up coming to pass. So I stopped questioning it now. So it's like that's become like refined and honed now. So that when something like that pops in, I'm just like, oh, let's see what happens now. It really becomes just a question after that of like, okay, God, you put this in my head. Do you want me to pray on this and wait? Or did you put this in my head to go and talk to that person? That's kind of what it has become now. Earlier, it was like, was this an intrusive thought? And now it's like, okay, here's the thought or the message or the, the word or whatever. Now, what do you want me to do with it? So I'd say that's how it's changed. But yeah, not on command. Unfortunately, that'd be pretty cool.
Would be pretty cool. Before we go, have you ever seen a ghost?
No, I don't think so.
It's a long pause, like you were considering.
Well, you have to think about these things, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't think so. Maybe I did, and it just wasn't apparent at the moment. I've seen a lot of things though that. Do you ever have things like where they'll happen and then you'll kind of go back your way and then you don't know what it is, but it feels like something kind of gets like lifted off after, and you're like, what the heck was that, sort of thing? Like,
yeah, occasionally.
I miss that in the moment. Like,
well, I told the story last year at some point. I got in one elevator and got off a different part of the building at the end of the day when no one else was there, which was it was very, very weird. Like, I knew these two elevators. They were at different ends of the building, and I got in one and I came down and I started walking out of the bottom of it. I was like, wait a minute, I'm the other. What? I came out the other exit. I don't know what that means. It's like I said, it's probably just me having a mental lapse, being confused is the most likely explanation. However, it was one of those things where I was like halfway walking down the hall and I stopped and goes, wait a minute, I should have come out this one. What, that kind of thing. Yeah. Okay, so have you ever seen
ghosts though?
I think I have. Well, I haven't seen an apparition. I think apparitions. I'll be honest. I think apparitions are scared of me. I don't know. I know that sounds conceited, but it's not. But it's not. Because I can. Well, like I said, occasionally in my life, I think I have seen another thing behind someone's eyes, and that sounds weird. I know, but there's people's faces. In people's faces, sometimes it's like almost like two sets of eyes looking at you, and I'm like, okay, there. And then it's very upsetting. I don't know what it is, except that I think that. Anyway, I think I have whatever is in my constitution is repellent to most spectral activity. I've
Wait,
maybe heard,
for someone so interested in it, you're just
yeah, I know. I've maybe heard more. I've maybe had auditory ones, but that's always questionable because it's just like it's less. It could be anything. I have seen a UFO with my eyes, which was very prominent. Have you ever seen anything like that? Any aerial phenomenon?
I did see a actual space rocket like leaving orbit once in my neighborhood, and that was very surprising.
Oh,
So unless that was actually a UFO and not a space rocket, I don't think so.
now, what do you mean leaving orbit?
Like I have the video of it on my phone, but I'm watching it make it looks like a boat basically. Like you know how it is when it's like going and the stream is coming off of it, sort of going through the sky, and it's just continuing to do that. You know.
Oh, it's going up. It's going up into, not coming down out of the sky.
No, it's going through,
okay.
Like trying to break through the atmosphere, and then it just slowly faded away into blue.
And where was this?
It was in this neighborhood, but I was living at a different house with roommates, so it was like.
Do you know what base could have launched it?
I don't know. That was my question. I'm horrible with geography, but I was like, well, I know they launch out of Florida a lot, but
because you don't live near the equator, do you?
No, I said I'm horrible with geography. Why would you ask me a question like that?
Well, because I was trying to think. You told me where you lived, and I don't want to disclose it, but I can't think of any.
Not that close.
I can't think of any space agency rocket things near you. Now, that's not to say they weren't shooting off something, or someone wasn't shooting off something, but
yeah.
Well, anyway, anything else you would like to discuss? Thank you again for coming on. But is there anything else you'd like to discuss?
Thank you. Trying to think if there's any more stories. I feel like there's something. Oh, okay. There was one. This one was more recent. This was like a year and a half ago. I was dating my now wife.
See, there's three. It's very emotionally connected to women for you.
Maybe it is.
Yeah,
that doesn't sound bad though, Yoshi. I don't know.
It's not. It just means that you have your spiritual psychic perception is very emotionally tied to
psychic Italian.
To love. Yeah, you're psychically Italian. Exactly.
Psychic Don Juan.
Exactly.
And I was so I was dating my wife at the time. This was very early in our relationship, but we didn't have a long relationship anyway. And I was reading my Bible, and the passage was not even relevant. And this kind of will let you know what it's like. You know, I'm just doing my thing, and then this random thought will happen. Where I can say it was God now. God said to me, if your wife was not able to have children, would that change how you feel about her? And I sat there and I was like, what a crazy thing to ask me. I was like, that's like, how am I supposed to respond to that? I was like, would it change how I feel about her? And I was like, well, I would still marry her if we're supposed to get married. Like, you know, like I said, it was very early in our relationship. So
right.
It was like hard to even like think about. It's like, well, I'm not going to say I'm going to marry the girl. I don't know everything about her yet. But I was like, but if I was certain right now that I was going to marry her and then I found that out, would I not marry her because I knew we weren't going to be able to have children? And I was like, no, I would still marry her. Right. And I love kids, want to have children very much. So it wasn't like I don't care. Like it was a big thing for me. Very, very big thing for me to be put that question. And so I was like, yeah, like I would still marry her. Some weeks later, you know, we're going on more dates. We're getting more serious. I asked my wife to be my girlfriend. And then it came the night where you get up the courage to tell her you actually love her, right? So I was in the car with my wife, and I told her that I was very serious about her, that I loved her, all this stuff, and she didn't say it back.
Yeah.
You know, and this
You're like Jerry and George from Seinfeld.
maybe, yeah.
Yeah. You probably haven't seen that, have you?
I haven't seen enough of Seinfeld now.
Yeah. Because you're like what?
I know Jerry.
20, 24?
I'm 25. Yeah.
Yeah.
And she was clearly processing. I had known her well enough to understand that she was processing. And I was like telling her, I was like, hey, like maybe I said that too early. You know, I was kind of backtracking a little bit. I was like, I'm not trying to force you into expressing feelings that you don't have yet. And and after a while of conversation, she told me she loved me. Woo. And then she told me that she started crying, and then she told me that she was scared to hear me say that because she then went into telling me that at the time she had gotten some medical news that would give her complications in having children. And she was very afraid to be committed to me because she was afraid that if I found out that I would not want to be with her anymore. And so that was a good moment for our relationship to be able to set that straight. I was like, no, like God already asked me. Like it was a great moment, you know, for us. I was like, God already asked me like what I would do. And she was completely shocked, of course. And so that was another moment where I was like, God was like preparing me with knowledge prior to the fact to kind of prepare my answer. Because I definitely, if she had said that, I would not know what to have said in the moment.
Right.
Like, hey, just so you know, I don't know if I'm going to be able to have kids. I'd be like, okay. And then I would have had to process that. But it was like I was already kind of locked and loaded. So that was probably the most recent one I had. It was about a year and a half ago.
So you guys are just newly married.
Yeah. Yeah, 1 year.
Oh, wow. There you go. Like 1 year today? Is it your anniversary?
It'll be 1 year July 5th.
Oh, happy early anniversary. Yep. Yeah, so that's... Yeah, so
I have a baby on the way, too.
Oh, wow. Yeah, the Calvary Chapel people move quickly.
We do.
The Calvary Chapel... I mean, I shouldn't say... I got married at 23. So, is it like, you know, the same.
Oh,
but,
wow.
Which was pretty early for my peer friend group, I think. But anyway, yeah. So it sounds like most of your experiences are tied to women, which is not bad.
I never actually connected the dots. Okay, but what about the police officer? I can't have a psychic bond to a cop I never met.
Female police officer. You didn't see? Yeah, exactly.
Dang it.
Yeah, and you probably would have tried a relationship with her had you met her.
Oh my gosh.
Is my, but that's not bad. That's not bad. I'm just saying that I think that for different people have different triggers. I knew a woman almost every paranormal event in her life had some relation with her dead grandparents. And they were in some ways verifiable, like they were verifying evidence. And another fellow who was probably the strangest case I've ever seen. All of his were he would get what he would describe as being visits. Again, this is his story. It's not mine. And he told me with the most ghost white face that I had to believe him. Because he was obviously...
Right, yeah.
Either he may be delusional, but he believes this is happening. He would get visits from the Grim Reaper before someone died that he knew. Not like it would...
The classic Grim Reaper?
No. Not like it would come and talk to him. Not like it would come and talk to him. He said, like, well, one of the case that stands out the most to me is that he had this house with a bunch of windows at the front, and you could see out in the front yard from the kitchen, and it was night. And but the driveway was sort of lit by the porch lights, you know. And he said I was sitting there, and I looked out the window, and a person without their skin on was coming down the driveway, and I
have to go to bed after this.
and he said I of course just kind of. He said, I almost died there out of terror, honestly. But I gathered enough wits about me to grab a knife, turn and grab a knife from the kitchen block, turn back, and it was gone.
Skinned. What would that do?
I know. He was like, it didn't make any sense then, but I was like, I got to do something. Because, you know, like, because he was like, he was processing many things. He thought, I guess death is coming for me now. Yeah. But according to him, that was happened prior to or the night of his brother dying, and he had similar things like that. I don't know what that means. And his Grim Reaper sounded much scarier than the Bones guy with the black cloak. Did everyone like a guy just without his skin on?
Yeah,
it's worse than.
I mean, either would have been bad.
Either would have been bad.
I think if it was the first one, my first thought would have been that somebody left up like last year's Halloween decorations or something like that. But like skinless person, there's no possible alternative for that other than someone lacking their skin.
Or a psychic delusion. I never discount people who are just crazy. However, you know, like when it happens on the same night that like your brother dies or whatever.
But but we say like people are crazy, but how likely is it that someone for no apparent reason just suddenly just snaps? But then after that, they're fine, you know?
I mean, I agree with you. In answer to that question, my answer is usually as likely as it is that you have any other sudden medical episode, which is not likely, but it does happen. Like people do not, they get sudden things go wrong. It's unlikely, and so maybe in your psyche you have sudden breaks, and then they get better. It's possible. The timing's a little suspicious, especially if it happens more than once. But he was a whole mess of cases. That fellow. I do sort of have my own investigative unit, but it's just me talking with people. There's nothing formal. I'm trying to formalize it better because I do think there's a place for this. You know, like not even the Catholic Church does exorcisms really anymore. They have a couple, but they don't take it seriously. And someone's got to be helping people with these things.
The Protestant version of some sort of like Men in Black exorcism paranormal investigation.
I would be like, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but you know, maybe like Constantine, the comic book character. Yeah. You ever read that one, the Marvel Constantine?
Oh yes.
Yeah.
No, I haven't read it, but I know what you're talking about now.
Yeah.
Well, I can't let you go without asking you about your UFO story because I've never actually, not that we've met in person, but I've never actually had a conversation with a person that is convinced they've seen one and can actually talk about it. So, had you had any prior interest or prior exposure of any kind to UFOs before your?
I mean, I think I'd seen an episode of the X-Files.
Okay,
that's about it.
So just fictional, but would you say you had a fascination with it?
No, not at the time.
Okay, so that was kind of the origin genesis of your current ventures.
Yeah, I tell people a lot that the UFO sighting was a time for me. I said, well, if that's real, anything's possible. Was my
okay. So was that like a beginning of like spiritual faith journey for you, or were you already a believer or at least a spiritual person?
I was already religious and I was already there, but it was just that was an opening of like, you know, the world is bigger than I think, or the universe, or whatever. You know, like it's not going to fit in my neat little boxes. Whatever I do was my takeaway from that.
So set the scene for me. What happened? Where were you?
I was 14 years old. I had a friend staying over for the night. We lived in the middle of a cow pasture in a field.
That's perfect conditions.
I know.
And you?
and we were out. It was about midnight. We were outside jumping on the trampoline and not going to sleep. And over the trampoline is a single street lamp standing in the middle of the field. Because my grandfather owned the field and he put up a few lights around the various gates. And our house backed up to one of the gates. And the trampoline was near it. And so imagine a trampoline in the middle of a cow pasture, pitch black dark, with a single light over it, so that anything from miles around could see just us like a spotlight.
Right.
Okay. We're sitting there. There's a hill with a road on it. And every now and then cars will come down the road and you see the lights. Mm-hmm. And the hill, they would start at the top of the hill and they come down the hill and they disappear. And this wasn't unusual. And we see a pair of headlights do the same. But this pair of headlights does not come down. It continues to stay at the same level. And after a minute, we notice this and we look over at it. And a spherical shadow, dark enough that it blocks the stars behind it, is floating above us, probably a football field in the air, like 100 yards-ish up.
Pretty maybe close. Less. I mean, for most of the stories I've heard, that's pretty close.
It's very large. I would say probably, if I had to put 30 feet in diameter of a sphere.
If you were able to like walk up to it.
If I was able to like measure it with a measuring rod, it would be 30 feet in diameter would be my guess. And it has two bright headlights on it. And it floats completely silently above us.
What color were they?
The headlights were just white, the same as like a car's.
Okay.
And then it blinked out of existence. And then we went inside and didn't speak about it again for 20 years.
Huh?
I know, that's the weirdest thing. It was like, it's sort of just kind of like, and then I was thinking about it, and I hadn't seen this guy, who was 14 years old at the time, in ages since we left I went to a different school for high school, so I hadn't seen him since, I mean, at least 20 years, at least. And I messaged him on Facebook, because I was still friends with him on Facebook. It was the only way I knew to get in touch with him. I said, I don't want to mess up this, because I don't want to tell you what I saw, remember. Do you remember anything weird any night when you stayed over at my house? And he said, he's told this story back to me verbatim the same way I told it to you. And that was like a confirmation for me that, yes, he had, in fact, also the same memory. And it was something that was so strange that it didn't even have a category. I couldn't even categorize it, really. And I'm not sure if anything even happened. Like, I mean, in the sense
something happened.
Well, not in the sense that like I didn't see something. I'm very convinced we saw something, but in the sense that was there more to it than like a lot of these people that have that sort of thing they talk about, like, I had missing time. Memory. Yeah, like I don't know about any of that, but we just went inside and then I did have the characteristic nosebleeds for my whole life growing up.
Wait, what?
People that have, and I'm not claiming this, but people that have claimed to be UFO abductees frequently suffer from nosebleeds. I did not know that.
I've had nosebleeds frequently since I was a child.
There are many reasons for nosebleeds. It's no reason to think that you're been abducted by aliens. None. However, I did have that characteristic side. And I've often tried to explain, like, why didn't we ever tell anyone about this? And I really can't explain why it wasn't a bigger thing, except that there was this linear thing. It was like I've said on the show before. It feels like it was a thing that I got to see for the purpose of telling me, do not try to put the whole world in the box, because there will always be more than you thought. Like this, whatever this was more than my ability to categorize it in any sort of way. I don't think it was an alien.
Was that your view at the time of like when you saw it, or
I didn't. Yeah, well, yes, but not. I wouldn't have verbalized it like that. I would have said, "That's crazy." But the takeaway from it,
timely.
Yeah, the takeaway from it for me was there is, people will tell you all these things about like, yeah, I mean, like anyone else, I grew up in a time of like I was, there was the moral majority stuff that was a little before my time and everything, but the religious the people, conservatives, fighting about like evolution and atheism and back and forth and this and that, and people were telling you, oh, the universe is like this or like this, and that was just kind of to me like, no one knows what it is actually. Whatever's happening is something so strange that is defied all categorization up to that point.
But that's how you felt when you were 14?
Yeah. Well, that's how I came to interpret it later.
So it was more timely probably for when you reached out to your friend.
Yeah. When I reached out to my friend was like I was going through a time of, that was before I started this podcast, and kind of was an impetus for it was these memories came flooding back to me, and I don't know, kind of unprompted. And I said to myself, was that real? And then I messaged him for confirmation. And whatever it was kind enough to give me a witness, that I could later keep in track of. So I don't know, and I think like, yeah, I don't know. I think that whole, you could say, and I think maybe it is possible to say that everything that I've written and podcasted stems from that UFO in a way. It wouldn't have happened without it. Is that good? I don't know. Maybe everything I've written is been to the detriment of the world and will bring on World War III and the collapse of civilization. I hope not, but one never knows.
We'll see.
It probably will be completely inconsequential. Is the most logical thing, is that it just is stuff I'm doing, throwing into the void that means nothing. The sound and fury, a tale told by an idiot, signifying nothing. It's probably what it all amounts to, but nonetheless, it's been fun.
Do you think that it was or wasn't an alien?
I don't think it was an alien. I don't know what it was. I don't know that it was anything that has a category that would fit.
So there's no noise, no aura or like flash of light, no glowing?
Nope, just a black sphere that floating by blocked out the stars behind it.
So basically just a shadow with headlights.
A shadow with headlights floating in the sky.
It must have been Harry, the flying car in Harry Potter.
Could have been. It could have been anything. I mean, except something that we know about because it disappeared in the blink of an eye. So it could have been anything except something that we know.
Jeez.
Or we had a shared delusion, which is also possible.
How often does that happen, though? Because I think that's what a lot of people try and like say with like the resurrection accounts, like group hysteria or something like that. So I'm just like, how many people do you know that freak out at the same moment about the same thing?
Well, that's the thing. It's I mean, COVID. We had the whole world. People can. That's the thing. It's very difficult to parse what is. But the other thing that I've come to see is that there really is a thing that if you believe it hard enough, your delusion becomes real, which is a terrible problem for like people that think they're going to get sick often do get sick. Is the most banal example, but also people who, like I think, and people get mad at me for this. I think the Fatima miracle of the sun was something that happened. Are you familiar with the Fatima and the miracles? Yeah. So it's a famous Catholic miracle that happened in sometime. 19 something and something. Prior to World War II, but after World War I, I think, is where I'll peg it. Somewhere in there.
Yeah.
In Portugal? Spain? Portugal. It's been so long since I cared about it. Anyway, these about 700 people, maybe, claim to see the sun dance around in the sky. And so if that is a problem for many reasons. Now, I think 700 people probably did see something. What? I don't know. I don't think they're all making it up. But everything around it that people cling to as an explanation, I do find traces of shared delusion. To like, as they used to explain that's why I try to not explain things too much, because that's when you get into just what happened, and then we try to figure out common threads of because you can get. I grew up in a Baptist church. They're kind of like Calvary people, except they are less so. Mm-hmm. They try to be more respectable.
Yeah, that's true.
They try to be.
I could show up to church as I am right now, and I'd be fine.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've gotten into that now too. No one cares anymore about anything. That country stopped caring about decorum or anything in any realm. And I'm not saying I like you look great. I'm just saying that in previous ages, people would say you dress up for a thing. But now people don't even dress up to go to work. I went to the bank the other day. The guy's wearing like barely more than a T-shirt behind the counter. It's the bank. No one cares.
It is a disgrace.
The world doesn't. The world has moved past clothing. We all live online now. We just have avatars. It doesn't matter. But the people in the Baptist church, they have a theology, as everyone in a religion does. And that theology says some things and proscribes other things as impossible. And one of the things their particular version believed was that, going from the Bible verse, that is given man once to die and after this the judgment, that ghosts did not exist. Because you go immediately to heaven or hell. You go immediately to heaven or hell. And so, when a lady at our church's brother died prematurely and suddenly, who then came to church the next Sunday claiming that he had visited her as a ghost or as a spirit and told her that it was fine, stop being so. He said, I've gone on to heaven. I'm in a better place. I'm in no pain. I miss you. And I know this is grievous for you, but please do not. She was kind of seen as like because she's coming to everyone with an experience that doesn't fit.
Wait, he walked into church?
She came into church having had this experience at home.
Oh, I thought you said he walked into church.
No.
Postmortem.
No,
everybody saw him. Wait.
No.
Okay.
She's grieving. She's at home one night. She says, at home in the nighttime, he appeared to me.
Got you.
And he said, hey, don't worry. And she said, I felt tremendous. And so she comes and everyone's remarking about like how she's handling it well. She says, well, he came and said he was in, and everyone's like, what? It's like, he came to my bedroom and he told me. And
her experience doesn't match their theology.
Her experience, and so and everyone has a version of this. If you're a materialist and someone sees anything, you get cast out because that can't happen. If you're, if you're a Catholic and you go to a Buddhist temple and have like a healing, a faith healing from a Buddhist, they're like, whoa, that can't happen. There's always a thing. And whatever exists is bigger than our categorizations of it. And God works everywhere. And he's not confined to what we think he should be working or shouldn't be working. And also whatever other spiritual things are out there, demons are at work and doing things, and angels presumably. and maybe the deceased, the human. Who knows? In fact. Oh, you asked if I'd seen a ghost. When I talked about hearing a ghost, I did hear my dead dog, and my family heard it also. And again, should dogs have a ghost? Many Christians would say no. In fact, that would throw me out of many Catholic circles because Thomas Aquinas said, no, they don't have rational souls. So it doesn't work. They have just mortal souls and they die. They do not persist for eternity. However,
That's strange.
We had a dog that lived in the garage, primarily in the garage. And in the garage were steps going up to the house. And those steps were they were not nailed, they were concrete steps that just sat on the ground. And they were slightly uneven. So that when you put weight on them, they went bump, bump on the ground as they wobbled. Just barely, but enough to make a sound. And whenever she would get hungry for dinner, she would go wait by the door, and you would hear, that was the way she would tell you, like, I'm waiting. You would hear her get on the steps and go bump, bump. And she'd get off it, and she'd go bump, bump. And we were all sitting there after she had passed away, and everyone loved the dog very much. And it was about the time for her to eat, and we all heard the dump out in the garage, just like normal. And that happened at least twice, and on two separate occasions. And I don't know. Again, it could be a shared delusion of the grieving. That is possible. However, it is. I do not discount that maybe animals. I think God saves everything. I think God saves everything. I don't think He's willing that anything should perish. And there's some roundabout, crazy ways that I don't know. I think people ask me, do all dogs go to heaven? My answer is yeah, probably, and also all turtles too, and whatever else. I don't know. It would be a lot of animals. If they're all saved, that's the problem. Maybe I don't know. Maybe they're
when routine gets involved, because whenever there's routine, there's mental anticipation.
Yeah.
And whenever there's mental anticipation, that's when things get a little bit tricky. Like I'll have like the phantom phone notifications, right? Where it's like I'm expecting a text from somebody.
Yeah.
And sometimes if I think about it hard enough, I feel as though I got the notification in my pocket and then there was nothing.
Right.
Maybe those are the ghosts I've had, the ghosts of texts yet to come. But yeah, that one's weird. Yeah, your UFO story is different, I will say, than a lot of the ones that I've had or heard of, because you felt like nothing in that moment, like in the scene. It was just like matter of fact.
The thing about it is,
it just happened.
I felt a strange, complete lack of fear. And I should have been terrified.
No fear. That's weird. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the stories I hear.
I felt like this is. I just felt sort of awe and wonder at it, and we both stopped bouncing on the trampoline and pointed at it and looked at it and we said, "What?" And we're trying to figure out what it is. And as it got really quite close, I was like, "This is something very not what should exist." And then it just going away into nothing was, and I mean like a reel in a picture camera. Like one frame it's there, the next frame it's not there anymore. Just suddenly, just completely boop, is gone. And and so that my experiences have led me. The message that I receive over and over again is, do not close off any possibility, because there's more in heaven and earth ratio than fits in your philosophy, as Shakespeare said. And so I've always been trying to drag people kicking and screaming along with me in that direction of like, yeah, we got all these ideas and they're good and they're useful and we need to keep them. However, they're not. Let's not say they're complete, and that we understand fully what's happening.
I've been of the, and I'm not the pioneer of this by any means. I've always assumed that most of when I was a kid, I think I just agreed with the adults around me that all the UFO stuff is fake.
Yeah.
But then I think once we got older, all of us were like, okay, we can't keep calling it fake anymore. Like some of this is just too strange, too common occurrences, too many corroborated stories with no reason to lie about it, all those sorts of things. And then I think now where I stand with it is like I feel like it has to be spiritual in some way. And specifically, I would say usually demonic, but that's why your story feels strange, is because you didn't have, usually most people have some sort of unexplainable dread or like fear that's associated with it, or even like sleep paralysis,
Yeah.
similar symptoms where they feel like they can't move, they have intense fear, and then like either lapses of memory or they remember everything and it's horrible and terrifying. And sometimes in like that subset of occurrences, people actually will encounter the beings, and it'll be people that are religious, people that are atheists will literally just compulsively start calling on the name of Jesus, and then everything just stops. I've heard that story multiple times, and that one has always been the one that's just weird to me, because it's like this thing that's never been seen, yet some reason the name of Jesus works. It's that one always kind of gets me. But
Yeah.
yours is definitely an outlier.
Well, the Greys are bad little dudes. I'm pretty confident. Whatever the Greys are bad little dudes. I think in general they're not good. However,
do they like poking things?
Yeah, they're the proby guys.
Gotcha.
But I didn't, like I said, I didn't see any gray aliens. But and again, the thing is like, yes, calling out the name of Jesus works. It appears to be, though, that any vocalization at all may work. It's the same of like breaking out of a sleep paralysis. Like these things are all, they sort of all overlap. Like if you're in a sleep paralysis, yeah, and that's not that. And I think it's too. I think people are too. It's too. Again, it's trying to put everything in a box where you're like, well, if it doesn't fit, it's a demon.
Yeah, there's a tendency for that, for sure.
And sometimes it is a demon. But sometimes I don't think it's a demon, and it's a something else. And what's the something else? I'm not sure. Sometimes I think it's latent human abilities. Sometimes I think it is the spirits of other living things that aren't human, maybe, in some way. Sometimes I think it's like a collective unconsciousness. Sometimes I think it's a premonition of the future. Sometimes I think maybe it's leaking from the time in the past to the present, or the future to the present. I don't know. There's all kinds of possibilities for these things. And like I said, sometimes some of them give you very, I would say, positive results. If you judge them by their fruit. Some things
like
give
good feelings, comfort.
Well, I mean, there have been people that have been healed by UFOs. People that have been
I heard those.
People that have had their relationships fixed by UFOs. If the work I've done has been any good, the goodness, I guess it may be bad. I'm not. I can't judge my own. I don't know. I hope not.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. And so there are good results from. This is why, like Seraphim Rose. Are you familiar with Seraphim Rose?
Heard the name, yeah.
He called everything. He called all the UFOs, the UFOs, demonic. And my thing with him was if I'd have met him in person, I said, first of all, I'd have said, number one, you gotta that other priest buddy of yours who's raping all the people, you gotta stop him. But number two, not all the UFOs are probably demonic. And actually, again, if we're worried about the demons, you need to go to the guy across the hallway. But first of all, not all of them are demonic. Some of them are, and it's a very, and that makes sense. Like if it is a spiritual thing, and I don't know that, I think it is something.
It would make sense that angels could appear in a similar way.
Yeah, because they're the same thing. One fallen, one not. Right.
Correct.
However, I will say this thing felt like it was physical. Like if I had picked up a rock and could hit it, it would have gone dunk. But maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, that is the weird kind of overlap of the metaphysics of it. It's like it is spiritual in essence, but that doesn't mean that it's not actually there. You know, it's not like the Hollywood thing.
Yeah, well, you know, the angels.
It felt like it was there, but you would go to
the angels are incredibly physical in the Bible.
Yeah,
they hold swords. They talk. You can wrestle with them. They talk to you. They all kinds of things. And I don't know why we got this. Again, this is why the influx of Greek philosophy was a terrible tragedy, in my opinion, into Christian theology and thinking, because then God is like this floating sphere bubble in the sky, the unmoved mover, and all that jazz. And he's like when like if you read like the Old Testament, God's very passionate and like changing his mind, it seems like, and doing this and doing the other thing, and you can make deals with him, and it's a lot more of like a and sometimes he feels more like a Zeus character in the Old Testament. And then then I went to this whole thing about this in the last show, but kind of, not really. But then there's this tendency in Greek philosophy to sort of spiritualize everything almost out of existence, and that is an intellectual move, I think, done so you don't have to explain anything. Because you say, well, how does this work? Well, it doesn't. It exists in a realm that is not that accessible, so you don't have to explain.
Yeah, it's like you try and make scientific order out of something that's non-physical, right? It's like you try and put everything in its place so that it makes sense to you, and therefore you don't have to be afraid of it.
Yeah, that, but also like kind of that, but also like you can't. My biggest critique of like Thomas Aquinas, peace be upon him, as the Muslims would say. Great guy, you know, little tubby. I always thought it was funny when he wrote about sins. He said, "Gluttony is seldom mortal," and I just imagine him rubbing his big fat tummy as he writes that about himself. Like, the thing I'm doing isn't that bad, but anyway, he wrote, "Gluttony is seldom mortal," while having that big fat tummy. Anyway, God bless him. The thing about, and this is a problem with all Aristotelianism, is that it's non-test. It's not. There's no experiment, and so you don't. There's no. You know, I have always thought, you know, well, like we have a thing that we think, and then we compare it to what happens, and then we revise as time goes on. And it's so much is unwilling to do that, you know. But God rest his soul, Thomas Aquinas. He's probably up there mad at me right now, talking bad about him. I have this. You know, he just understands.
He's probably just jealous he didn't live to see the Twinkie.
That's true. Yeah, Thomas. Anyway, yeah. Thanks for coming on. There's another guy that wants to do a podcast with me now, but he's saying he can't do it for another. I'm probably gonna go to bed instead. He's you know, he's like a neo-Nazi guy. Nice aside from that. I think he's actually. I don't know what he is.
I've never really understood the neo aspect of it. I feel like they think it makes them feel cool or something. I don't know. It's just just because it's, you know, it's untethered. It's like Nazism untethered to Germany or whatever, I guess. I don't know. It's a new version. Okay.
Maybe he's not. I don't know. He may be. I don't know. He claims to be the final incarnation of Karl Marx. Anyway.
Actually?
No, he's being facetious, but
of course. You never know with these guys.
But he's at the gym and he's like, I can't get there. I was like, okay, well, we'll do it later. But
I mean, he's got to keep that.
I will always talk with anyone, no matter, like, I wanted to get the Taliban on the show. I've reached out to them several times now that they are sort of normalized. And they're just running Afghanistan, and I want to have war. I want to hear the Iraq War from the side of the Taliban, you know. But they got kicked off all social media, and I don't know how to really contact. Everything's in like Arabic. If you go to their websites, Like, yeah. I don't know. Maybe if anyone knows the Taliban, please send them an email and tell them to.
Taliban.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, sir.
It's a pleasure, man. Thank you.
Tell your brother I said hello.
I will.
All right.
Thanks
See
so
you
much,
then.
dude.
Bye-bye.
Have a great night.
See you.